This day in Philly sports history is proud to be a part of the Clashing Conferences Sports Fan Network, where passionate fans make powerful content. Check out theclashingconferences.com and join the squad today. What's up, everyone? Welcome to this day in Philly sports history for March 23rd, 2026. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a Monday edition of the podcast. A little bit rainy. First full Monday of spring. The madness is over. The dust is settling. And hopefully your bracket is not broken. It's time to rewind the weekend like we do every Monday morning. Brought to you by Philly Goat. Go to phillygoat.com. Use the promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off your order. They got you covered with all your Philly sports-based apparel needs. So go check them out. Always coming out with new shirts. Get ready for opening day, which is this week. They got you covered with Phil's gears as well. So go to phillygoat.com. Use the promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off of your order. All right, so let's start with the Sixers. Good win, 126-116 over the Jazz. VJ had 22. He's been very good since Tyrese went out. Quentin Grimes led the Sixers with 25. However, Dominic Barlow injured his leg. Looks like he will be out tonight versus Oklahoma City. So severely shorthanded tonight against the defending champs and arguably still the best team in the league. Yikes. But they're home against the Thunder tonight at Xfinity Mobile Arena. Currently, I mean, we talked about this. There's not going to be a tankathon because of where they are in the standings. They're currently in 7th, tied with the Hawks, but the Hawks have the tiebreaker for that 6th spot. Sixers are only a game out of 5th, so ideally, you'd want to get into that 5th or 6th spot to avoid having to play the play-in. But depending on, I guess, on how you look at it and who's coming back, maybe the play-in is the right way for the Sixers to still have a shot at the lottery. But Paul George should be eligible to come back on Wednesday. Whether or not he's been working out and ready to go, I don't know. I don't think he's been able to practice. Joe, who knows? Tyrese should be reevaluated with his hand next week. Kelly Oubre, hopefully this week. Maybe we get some good news from an injury front for a change with this team, but buckle up. It's going to be a bumpy ride here through the end of the season. Meanwhile, the Flyers, with a 4-1 win over San Jose, out in San Jose, they swept their little 3-game West Coast trip. They're certifiably hot. I think that's 9 out of 12 for them. Christian Dvorak, Noah Cates, Owen Tippett, and Travis Sanheim all scored for the Flyers. Dan Vladar saved 24. As all of a sudden, don't look now, Flyers only 4 points out of that final wild card spot. They're back in action tomorrow down at the X versus Columbus. Again, just like the Sixers, buckle up. It's going to be a bumpy ride. But at this point, and the way the season has been playing out, I know this sounds crazy. I have more confidence in the Flyers right now than I do the Sixers. They seem to be turning it around somewhat. All right, I mentioned the Phillies. Opening day is Thursday. Today is the last spring training game. We're going to start our week-long, leading you up to Thursday's game, Phillies preview. But the big news over the weekend is Christopher Sanchez is not going anywhere. 6-year extension keeps him here till 2032. Combine that with Luzardo and hopefully what Andrew Painter's going to bring. And there's your top three starters for the next foreseeable future. So I'll take it. Kind of takes the pressure off of Sanchez, sort of takes the pressure off the Phillies as well, as they can now focus on whatever's going to happen with the CBA and then building a team around them, I guess. I mean, Bryce isn't going anywhere either. Neither is Trey. So there's your 5 guys. I think Schwarber's here for 4 more, but they're running it back. We'll talk more about that here in a little bit. But it is spring train or the end of spring training and opening day, which always is a big deal. More so than any of the other sports opening day. I feel like for baseball, opening day just means more, but we'll get more into opening day later this week. Union continue to struggle, falling to Chicago 2-1, 0-5 to start MLS play after winning the Supporters Shield last year. Need to get it together there, guys. They're back in action Saturday down in Charlotte. And it was a sad March Madness for our Philly teams as Villanova's men and women both were ousted in the first round. But overall, it seemed like some good games down at Xfinity Mobile Arena. Tennessee is moving on in their bracket, beating Virginia, and then UConn beat UCLA, so they're moving on. But some decent games, a lot of fun. The first two rounds are always the best. I really wish I'd have done a better job and tried to get down there for some of those games, but we let the dust settle. Hopefully your bracket's not busted. I feel like every 10 years I have a good bracket, and I have a good one right now. I'm currently sitting in second place. All Final Four teams are still intact, so hopefully that trend continues starting Thursday. Eagles also made some news. They signed J.T. Gray, former All-Pro special teamer and safety, add some depth to that position. Also re-signed Marcus Epp. And I like that from a depth perspective as well as competition. The team really, I think it's got to push. I would expect them to take a safety in the draft. But the team really seemed and the defense started to play better once Epps returned from injury last year. So I like that. That move, both of those moves, I should say, coincided with trading of Sidney Brown. The Sidney Brown experiment is over. They traded him to Atlanta and then swapped 4th and 6th round picks. So Howie moving up in those rounds of the draft. But Sidney Brown was just one of those guys who was frustrating. All the potential in the world. Played like his hair was on fire, but just couldn't control and rein that in. So maybe a change of scenery will do him good, but good move there by Howie. Like I said, I still expect them to sign or draft a safety somewhere to pair with Andrew Makuba. Still looking for Reed's replacement as well. So maybe that's Makuba. Who knows? But lots of work to do for Vic Fangio and that defense. And Howie, still get back in that lab and start cooking as the draft isn't far away. And then a quick programming note. Kyle and I will be back this week, probably late Thursday, so expect the new Brotherly Birds breakdown at some point on Friday. Got some things going on Thursday night. So when I come back, we're going to record that. Don't know if I'm going to get it edited in time to be out on Friday, but some point Friday, so stay tuned for that. And as always, the best way to stay in the loop is subscribe to the YouTube channel or Spotify or Apple or wherever you get your podcasts so you get notified once the new episode is up. So what happened this weekend in Philly sports history? March 21st, going to go all the way back to 1958. Temple versus Kentucky in the Final Four. Kentucky wins at 61-60 when they hit a layup with 16 seconds left. Kentucky would go on to win their 4th NCAA title, while Temple would win the 3rd place game. Guy Rogers with 22 points, and it's a disappointing end for that Temple team who went 27-3. 2 of those 3 losses came to Kentucky that season, both in close games. Fast forward to 1962, the Phillies retire Robin Roberts' number 36 jersey, the first number they retired in team history. And then in 2004, we said goodbye to an old friend. I still have, it's right behind my microphone, but a little piece of it. Let me see if I can show you. There it is. See it there, that little gray thing right about there. Yep. That is a piece of Veterans Stadium, which was imploded on March 21st, 2004. Greg Luzinski gave one last blast to the vet, pushing the button to knock it down. And if you remember watching this on TV, or if you were there in person, in true vet fashion, the dynamite hit. You heard the blast, and the stadium still stood for a couple seconds. And then as it started going around, the big tower just seemed like it was not going to fall. And then all of a sudden it fell down. The vet hung on to the very end, but imploded on this day in 2004. Lots of great memories at the vet. So many. But maybe that's a topic for this summer once things start slowing down a little bit. And then March 22nd, go back to 1956. Temple was playing in the Final Four. This time, the first ever Final Four in team history. They lose to Iowa 83-76. Guy Rogers with 28, Hal Lear with 32, but it wasn't enough. And once again, the Owls would win the third place game, which doesn't exist anymore. So 2 out of 3 years, Temple took third in the NCAA tournament. And then in 1960, the Warriors beat the Celtics 128-107 in Game 5 of the East Division Finals. Wilt had a typical Wilt game, 50 points, 35 rebounds, held the Celtics to 29% shooting. The teams combined for 169 rebounds, which is an NBA playoff record. Lots of bricks being thrown up on this day. And then in 1981, the St. Joe's Hawks' dream ended in the Elite Eight with a 78-46 loss to the eventual national champion Indiana Hoosiers, led by Bob Knight and All-American Isaiah Thomas. And then in 1984, Flyers set a franchise record with goals in a game with 13 as they beat the Penguins 13-4. 7 different Flyers scored, including hat tricks from Dave Poulin and Ilka Sinisalo. Each of them added an assist as well. Excuse me. And that's Rewind the Weekend, a very eventful weekend. Hopefully, like I said, your bracket is still intact or you're still alive in block pools, which I didn't win one block pool. The guy that had the number right before me and right after me on both ends, like there was like 6 blocks hit and I hit 0. But that's Rewind the Weekend, brought to you by Philly Goat. Go to phillygoat.com. Use the promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off of your order. All right, some quick housekeeping. Be sure to follow me on all social media platforms at Philly Jimbo. I mentioned the YouTube channel and the Brotherly Birds Breakdown coming on Friday, and continue to spread the word as we grow this thing. And I do have to say a huge shout out and congratulations to the Upper Dublin girls basketball team who beat Dallastown to win the PIAA 6A state championship. Came home to a nice little parade, a shower from the fire department, which is right there by the high school. Pretty cool experience. So shout out and congrats to the Upper Dublin girls. And then last week's trivia question, I always give you a homework assignment over the weekend. I said, who were the only players since 1980 from the Big Five to be unanimous first-team All-American? Well, Michael Brooks in 1980 from LaSalle. Lionel Simmons, 1990, also from LaSalle. Kerry Kittles, 1996 from Nova. Jameer Nelson, 2004, St. Joe's. Randy Foy, shout out to my Uncle Roach, who was the one who got that one right in 2006. Scotty Reynolds is the one, though, that tripped everyone up, Villanova in 2010. And then, of course, Jalen Brunson from Villanova in 2018. Today's trivia question. A little bit of fun. I'm wearing my Temple shirt. It is March Madness. Temple did not make the big dance. But how many Division I teams have the nickname the Owls? I was kind of surprised that over the weekend I heard one of the teams in the tournament this year was also nicknamed the Owls. So how many teams and what colleges are they? Hit me up on the Back to the Future voice and text line 267-495-8531. That's the Back to the Future voice and text line. Get that. Anything else Philly sports related, want to rant about the state of the Big Five, Eagles moves, Phillies opening day coming, Sixers who are the walking wounded, Flyers chances, all of that is fair game. If you want to talk a little Union, let's talk that as well. Or the Discord channel, which is in the description. Come over, let's have some fun Philly sports talk. Whether you're coaching Little League, crushing your fantasy league, or just rolling up to a bachelor party like a Philly legend, Lotwin Custom Hype Chains bring the energy. Fully customizable, totally unforgettable, and guaranteed to turn you into the MVP of the moment. Great for teams, groomsmen, or anyone who wants to show off with some serious swagger. Go to Lotwin.com, use the promo code TCCPOD, and get 10% off your own custom hype chain. Lotwin, let's get hyped together. All right, I mentioned Phillies opening day on Thursday. Let's start with today's portion of our Phillies preview. As we go through today, we'll talk about the infield, tomorrow outfield, Wednesday the pitching staff, and Thursday, as I always do, I'll give you my predictions and even some bold predictions. I went about 50-50 on bold predictions last year, so it's always a fun thing to do. But this offseason was mostly just re-signing their own guys. I guess the biggest acquisition was Adolis Garcia, who will start in right field. They lost Nick Castellanos and Harrison Bader, depending on if you want to count losing Harrison Bader as a loss or not. Of course, they were all in on Dante Pichette, and then all of a sudden the Mets swooped in. But how does the infield look this year? I mean, we'll include catchers on this as well. JT re-signed. I like the move from the standpoint of, here we go, you got a solid pitching staff who they all like him, much like the guys from the other golden era of Phillies baseball loved Chooch. So I like it from that. Anything you get from JT offensively is a plus. And then, of course, Ralphie Marchand made the team as the backup catcher, meaning Garrett Stubbs will either be traded or designated for assignment. And, I mean, they gave him every opportunity to try to make the team, tried him out at other positions. So I'm not sure what's going to happen there. But I think with JT defensively, I think he has lost a step slightly. But the way, so far in spring training, the way he's been commanding the ABS system, I think that's a solid move, especially with a guy like Andrew Painter making the rotation and needing that veteran leadership there. And then you have Bryce at first, Stott at second, Turner and Bohm. I mean, I think solidly on defense with Stott and Bryce on the right side. Left side, I mean, Bomer did start to improve a lot last year. Trey didn't necessarily have his worst season, but there's still some question marks with some of his moves, especially in that Dodgers series. But I think it's going to come down to how they perform at the plate. What do we have with Bryson Stott? I feel like this might be a make or break season for him. He seems like he, from the end of last season and even what he's done in spring training, may have figured some things out. Bryce, he keeps talking about how he wants to stop swinging at bad pitches. It's all well and good. You just need to do it. Trey won the batting title last year, so you know what you're going to get with him. Bohm had a very good spring, hopefully in a season that potentially could be his improving his trade value or his free agent value. I know they were very high on Aiden Miller, but then with his back issues, didn't make the team. I kind of thought there was an outside shot for that. So, I mean, I think those two guys, Bohm and Stott, I think anything you get out of them, I think you're going to need to, I shouldn't say anything, I think you're going to need to get things out of Bohm and Stott, and especially because I think this is sort of a do or die for Stott, like to see what are you as a player, and Bohm obviously looking for his next contract likely, depending on what happens as Aiden Miller. But I feel like lather, rinse, repeat with Phillies for the past 5 years. It comes down to hitting. They can do it in the regular season. I mean, this is a team that consistently wins 90 games. But then when their bats go cold, I still have never seen anything like it, where when they go into a slump, everybody goes into a slump. They're going to need to figure out a way to have it spread out across everybody. But I think the potential is there. I think obviously they're a year older, but you know what you're going to likely get out of Bryce. You know what you're going to get out of Trey. It comes down to Stott and Bohm from the infield perspective on whatever you can get from them. If they can come, and if Bohm can go back to like an all-star form where he's hitting doubles, maybe get pop a little bit more than 18 to 20 home runs, maybe you're all right. Stott, I need him hitting around 280. So we'll see what happens. But what are your thoughts? Like I said, there's a lot to talk about on the Back to the Future voice and text line. So we'll see what happens. And, of course, Edmundo Sosa made the team as one of the reserves. And Dylan, who they just picked up, also made the team as well. So it's not the best. I'm not going to say here, oh, we got 4 starters in the All-Star game, but it's a solid, like I said, I think everybody's down on the Phillies this year because of the lack of big moves and essentially running it back. But they got some players. I mean, I don't know. Let me know your thoughts on the Phillies infield. 267-495-8531. Maybe it's just the spring fever hitting me. I don't know. But let's go to March 23rd. And first, we're going to go back to 1974. And the Immaculata Mighty Macs beat Mississippi College 68-53 out at Kansas State to win their 3rd consecutive AIAW national championship. The Immaculata team was led by Hall of Fame coach Kathy Rush. They were just a dominant team of the era. Essentially the first dynasty in women's basketball. They come on the heels of Title IX. That entire 72-74 team, they are in the Basketball Hall of Fame. They were led by All-Americans Teresa Shank and Marianne Crawford. And truthfully revolutionized the game and really put women's basketball on the map. They were involved in the first televised women's game. They played in the first women's game at Madison Square Garden. Went 49-4 over the course of 3 years, winning 3 AIAW championships. Sort of predates the NCAA, which I thought this was strange. I almost used this as a trivia question. The first NCAA basketball tournament for women wasn't until 1982. But a lot of this, the Immaculata Mighty Macs and Kathy Rush laid the groundwork for what we see today and even going into the pros, the WNBA. But on this day in 1974, Immaculata wins their 3rd straight national championship, beating Mississippi College 68-53. 5 years later, the Sixers won 2 games in the same day versus the Nets. They won the originally scheduled game 110-98. Dr. J had 26 points and 9 rebounds. And then before that, though, they had to complete a game that was under protest from November 8th. Sixers won the original game in November 137-133, but the Nets filed a protest due to the Sixers being awarded too many technical free throws. So essentially the NBA said we will play the game from the moment of the extra illegal, I guess you could call it, technical free throw, which was 5 minutes, 50 seconds roughly in the 3rd quarter to the end. Well, the restart, the Sixers won it 123-117. Now, the interesting part of the replay of that is since the original game, the Nets and the Sixers actually made a trade. Eric Money and Al Skinner were traded to the Sixers for Harvey Catchings and Ralph Sampson. Sampson's Catchings and Money all played for both teams in both games. Eric Money ended up in the box score for both the Sixers and the Nets, scoring for, he started for the Nets, so had a ton of points in that first game, played a few minutes in the second game, scoring for the Sixers, the first and only time in NBA history where a player scored for both teams in the same game. So the Sixers beat the Nets twice on this day. Eric Money scoring for the Sixers in the second game after scoring for the Nets in the first part of the game. You following that? It's kind of confusing. All right, then some more March Madness. Fast forward to 2001. The 11th seed Temple Owls beat number 7 Penn State 84-72 in the Sweet 16. Lynn Greer, 21 points. The Owls led this game by 17 at halftime. I remember I was down at my buddy's bar, Murphy's, in East Falls, watching this game. Ton of Penn State fans there for some reason. It was like the first time Penn State basketball in a while was good, but they were no match for Chaney's matchup zone as the Owls go to the Elite Eight for the 5th and final time under Coach John Chaney. And then in 2018, number 1 seed Villanova beat number 3 seed Texas Tech 71-59 in the Elite Eight to reach their second Final Four in 3 years. 4 of the 5 starters scored in double digits. Dante DiVincenzo, 12 off the bench for the Wildcats, setting up a showdown in the Final Four with the other number 1 seed, Kansas Jayhawks. And we all know how that played out for the Wildcats. All right, and then finally today, our Women's History Month Spotlight. Every journey starts somewhere. For these women, it started in Philly, whether it was on the playgrounds, rec centers, packed high school gyms, packed city gyms, and it all led to the WNBA. Today, we're going to take a look at Kamisha Hairston, who's an Ohio native, but a Temple graduate. And for the first 3 years of her time at Temple, she was a second option under Candice Dupre, who we talked about earlier this month. But then her third year, her senior year, I should say, she broke out, averaging 18.9 points and 8.9 rebounds per game. She was a 4-year starter at Temple, won the A10 Player of the Year. She was 2-time Atlantic 10 first team, 3-time A10 defensive first team. She helped lead the Owls to 3 straight Atlantic 10 championships under Dawn Staley. She won the A10's Most Improved Award in 2005, and all of that led her to being the 12th overall pick in the 2007 WNBA draft. Had a short WNBA career, but she's in the Big Five and Temple Hall of Fame. So from Ohio to Temple to the WNBA, we celebrate the journey. And Kamisha Hairston, today we celebrate your journey from Temple to the WNBA. On this day in 2018, Villanova reaches the Final Four, beating Texas Tech 71-59. 2001, Temple goes to the Elite Eight, beating Penn State 84-72 after leading by 17 at halftime. Sixers beat the Nets twice in 1979, the originally scheduled game, and then, of course, the replay of the final quarter and a half after the Nets protested. Eric Money showed up in the box score, both teams scoring for both teams in the same game. And the Immaculata Mighty Macs won their 3rd straight national championship on this day in 1974. Be sure to let me know your thoughts on the Phillies infield. Like I said, I mean, there's a lot of if this goes well with this team, but I don't know. We've seen crazier things, and I mean, if Bomer and Stott can, the daycare can play the way they should be able to play, maybe they won't be as bad. We'll see. But don't forget the trivia question. How many Division I teams have the nickname the Owls, and what teams are they? You should know at least one. If you're looking at my shirt, you should know one. But hit me up on the Back to the Future voice and text line. Lots to talk about. We'll have more on the Sixers as... Will they lose by 30 tonight to the Thunder? That's the better bet. I don't care what the point spread is. Maybe you do a little alternate line and take the Thunder minus 25. Wouldn't be a bad bet. Wouldn't be a bad bet. This has been This Day in Philly Sports History for March 23rd, 2026. My name's Jim Montgomery. Go have yourselves a Monday. And until next time, I'll see you when I see you.